Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today on a grim, gray, chilly day here at the end of May. Not the least bit of summer. Just no sunlight at all, no breath of wind, just a chill that gets in your bones. Very, very typical kind of boomerang bit of weather here when you're ready to put away all the winter stuff, and then you get a reminder that maybe you should wait until June. uh, I've got a little bit of stuff here. I've got a couple of periodicals and a couple of packages I thought we'd go through. One of the periodicals is the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, broadsheet newspaper for the island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, where I am the books reviewer. I review the books, and I have a review in this issue, a review of Julia Spiro's book, Such a Good Mom, that we saw on this channel. It is it's an absolute delight to appear in the Vineyard Gazette. I have a long connection with the Vineyard Gazette and a long connection with the Vineyard. And it's also an absolute delight to get your own work in the mail, in a print journal. I mean, I write reviews all the time online, and I'm not slighting that at all, but I am a creature of the old print newspaper world, so it's neat to get that and see your byline. That's always fun. And then the other periodical is the London Review of Books, one of the foremost literary journals of the English-speaking world. And this has a lot of stuff in it that's going to be of great interest to me. When I look at a review like this, I always look first at whether or not anyone is writing about a book that I wrote about. And the London Review, that always causes butterflies in the stomach just a bit. What happens if some other journal's critic sees something that I didn't see? Or maybe they have a take on it that I suddenly look at and think, oh, that's probably right, or something like that. So the butterflies, but the butterflies are worse in something like the London Review, because the London Review's pieces tend to be longer. They tend to be a couple of thousand words, as opposed to around 800 words, which is usually what I do. So what do we have here? David Runciman reviews Hayek's Bastards, the neoliberal roots of the populist right. I really do need to, I don't think I ever got a copy of that book for David Murphy. I really do need to do that. But of course I didn't review it. Oh, there's a David Thompson piece in here. He is so good on film. And this is him reviewing John Bleasdale's new book on the films of Terrence Malick. Thompson is so good on film. That's wonderful. Adam Morris Jones reviews Audition by Katie Kitamura and Lazarus Man by Richard Price. It's an odd pairing. Oh, wow. Michael Kulikowski, whose work I like, reviews Simon Hornblower's new book, Hannibal and Scipio, which I reviewed. Well, he's going to have a lot of space to do that. That's going to be great. That's going to be great. And someone named Yesenda Maxtone Graham reviews Hallie Rubenhold's book, Story of a Murder, about the Crippen murder, which I also reviewed. As we'll see. We'll see what they make of it. For this issue, I want to turn to the letters page, and I want to show you a rare example of something. Very rare. We have talked many times on this channel about how what tends to happen in the letters page. Something that tends to happen in the letters page of a literary journal is that the author whose book was reviewed will write in to complain. And I have said many, many times, there is no good reason to do that. That is a bad thing for a writer to do. If you read a review of your book and the review has factual errors, well, that's a legitimate reason to correct the public record, but not you yourself. Not you yourself. Get your publisher to do it. Tell your publisher to have an editor there write a letter on behalf of the book that they published. It's not your job to defend your work. It's their job. You writing a letter complaining about a review in a major literary journal when there are 200,000 new books every year and only a fraction of them get a review at all inevitably looks petty. It inevitably looks petty. Or does it? I have said that forever. And in the letters page of this London Review, we see an example of the opposite. I thought I would read it to you. The first letter is a letter from an author, from the author Paul Frecker, about a recent review of his book. So you would think that I would just be condemning it. Now, it's a very long review, so let me go at it. I'll cut out a bit of it here. It starts off with, Tom Crew seems to have enjoyed my book, Cartomania, Photography and Celebrity in the 19th Century, but claims to have detected several omissions. I'll put my hand up to politicians, sex, and pornography, but I'm flummoxed as to his remark that, quote, there is nothing, however, on actors, artists, or writers. That is a quote from Crewe's review. There is nothing, however, on actors, artists, and writers. And then Frecker goes on. He says, the actors Sarah Bernhardt, Lily Langtry, and Clara Roseby, and Maud Branscombe are all discussed at some length. Mrs. Roseby even has a double-page spread with 8 of her many portraits. The list of other thespians who appear either in passing briefly or in illustrations is long. And then he gives you the long list. And then he goes on. As for writers, Charles Dickens makes several appearances. His relationship with the photographer Herbert Watkins and elsewhere with photography in general are explored in detail, and there are 3 portraits of him. Also much in evidence is Mary Elizabeth Braddon, Anthony Trollope, Wilkie Collins, Edward Bulwer-Lytton, Alexander Dumas the father, Max Beerbohm, Elizabeth Gaskell, Oscar Wilde, Arthur Conan Doyle, each make brief appearances. Lewis Carroll and George Sala supply quotes, as do William Wordsworth and Charles Baudelaire. There's also a chunk from Benjamin Disraeli's Sybil and a synopsis of Mrs. Henry Wood's hugely successful novel East Lynne. Even James Joyce gets a mention. I make that 17 writers, not including the ones who have since faded into obscurity. Artists are less in evidence, but there is a good anecdote concerning William Powell Frith and problems he faced trying to obtain photographs of all the guests at the wedding of the Prince of Wales, and another concerning the war artist and reluctant sitter Elizabeth Thompson, which involves her aunt, a bunch of bananas, and a Chelsea costermonger's barrow. And then Frecker ends his letter. Doesn't hammer home the point, doesn't get in a final shot. He's made his point, which is that he shouldn't have written this letter himself. Let's clarify that. He shouldn't have written this letter himself. He should have provided these examples to his publisher, and his publisher should have sent this letter. It still looks a little bit whiny on his part to complain about getting a long, positive review in the London Review of Books. But he is making a fact claim. He's claiming that Tim Crewe is wrong. Tim Crewe has said, quote, I'm flummoxed. There is nothing, quote, there is nothing, however, on actors, artists, or writers. So Frecker is saying there's plenty on all 3, and here it is. And you can presume from his letter that he could go on. And Tom Crewe makes a response. He responds to the criticism of his review. I haven't really laid down a dictum about whether or not critics should do this, but he does. And his response is scurrilous. In this case, the reviewer actually comes off looking worse than the complaining author. He writes, I certainly did enjoy Paul Frecker's book, and I'm sorry to have provoked him to a defense of its copiousness, which is one of its great virtues. When I said there was, quote, nothing on actors, artists, or writers, I didn't mean that no actor, artist, or writer was mentioned, only that they weren't given significant thematic treatment. Returning to some of the examples Frecker cites in his letter, I haven't changed my mind. No, Tommy boy, I'm afraid that's not what you wrote. You wrote there's nothing on them. And you're a reviewer, so you write for a living, which means your words have to matter. And if you say there's nothing on, what was it again? Nothing on actors, artists, or writers, that means the book doesn't mention them. Doesn't mean you didn't write there isn't enough on them. You wrote there's nothing on them. So, yes, the writer looks poor for complaining about a long, favorable review of his book, but the reviewer does himself no favors, because he reveals himself to be a sniveling Trumpist who will not apologize or retract anything, even when it's factually proven to be wrong. So a little bit of a dust up in the letters column, but we'll look forward to those long reviews of books to which I gave short reviews. But anyway, let's look at the packages here and see what we've got. So this first one is in a priority mail envelope. That's probably not coming from the publisher. Oh, there's my little mouse's face over my shoulder. On days like today when it is dark and cold, you have to resist the urge to turn on the heat. You have to resist the urge to do that. The heat is off for the summer. No matter how uncomfortable it gets in the next few days, the heat is off for the summer. So you need to resist that urge. Both of us are feeling it. We'll cuddle all the closer. So what have we got here? Oh, that's right. Oh my. Oh, All right, this comes from one of you, but it's totally approved. It's not a desecration of rule number one. Rule number one on this channel, for you new people, is, is don't send me a book. Don't do it. Even if in the course of a video I say, oh, I really like that book, I wish I had a copy, still don't do it. Still don't do it. Check with me first. Now, a lot of you have this dumb Protestant idea that spoils a surprise, but you're not 5. Check with me first. If I want the thing you're suggesting, I will squeal like a stuck pig. And I did in this case. Someone, I think at a library sale, found a copy of A Naturalist Buys an Old Farm by Edward Way Teale, which I had talked about on a library tour and really, really wanted. And this is that. Wow. Fantastic. Okay, this is full of illustration. There is a woodchuck. Let's hear about this. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, whoever did this. God almighty. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find you in my inbox. I get a lot of emails every day. I guess I can look for the word naturalist. I can search for that and see. Let's see here. Very few, if any, of our great naturalists in this lifetime have wandered a field so many miles as Edwin Way Teale. To all 48 states of the Mid-Continental Union, he has taken us in his 4-volume Pulitzer Prize-winning American Seasons, intensely of late through England, Wales, and Scotland, and previously down into grassroots jungles and golden beehives, away through lost woods across the Indiana dunes, along the shores of our seas. Not even Audubon or Muir ever covered so much nature-rich terrain. One might suppose, then, that this book, confined to a small acreage of an old Connecticut farm, would be restricted in comparison. But instead we find the surprising bounteous wealth of near-at-hand Teale's home place, Trail Wood, immediately makes one think of White's Selborne, Thoreau's Walden, and Burroughs' Slabsides. Here are the day-to-day and also night-by-night outdoor adventures with bluebirds, woodchucks, daisies, tadpoles, hills, brooks, swamps, butterflies, hickories, sunshine, shadow, rain, and snow. I've read this book a couple of times. Getting it in the mail with a nice dust jacket like this is a perfect indication to do it again, to read it one more time. Just perfect. Oh, thank you so much. How wonderful. Okay. All right, well, there's one. And then we have another package here. This one definitely did come from a publisher. It's in one of these vacuum-sealed things. So let's see what we have here. An advanced copy of something. Oh, okay. All right. All right, this comes out in September. It's a biography. That's good. I don't want to block the baby's mousy face. I've got a little raccoon over my shoulder here. This comes out in September. This is by Frances Wilson, and it is called Electric Spark, The Enigma of Dame Muriel. It is a new biography of Muriel Spark. And there she is, dying of lung cancer, the complications due to lung cancer that killed her. Because that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to put on the cover of our author biographies. We're going to put a picture of them indulging in their drug addiction, shooting up in a back alley. That's the best picture that we can come up with for them. Not them at a book signing with a bunch of their books or a bunch of fans. Not them, in a headshot, a studio headshot for the back flap of their book. But them smoking. Just let's do that to make sure we know they're cool. Even though they spent the last 20 hours of their life crying in agony, wishing they had made any decision in the world but that one. Anyway, I guess maybe book designers think that everybody is an insecure 13-year-old. The only kind of people who think that's cool. But anyway, let's see what we have here. So when Muriel Spark invited Martin Stannard, the biographer of Evelyn Waugh, a writer with whom Spark shared many characteristics and experiences, some incidental, others eerie, to write and publish her authorized biography, the expected outcome was not the actual one. A blizzard of recriminations and lawsuits threatened by the ever-litigious Spark. She was quite the number. Not, by most accounts that I've read, a deeply unpleasant person. Deeply unpleasant. And therefore a challenge to a biographer, right? I would think. Maybe not, considering that there are 1,000 Hitler biographies. This immense difficulty faced by the would-be biographer of Spark is what lies at the center of Frances Wilson's scintillating Electric Spark, The Enigma of Muriel Spark, which focuses primarily, though not exclusively, on Spark's life leading up to the publication of her first novel at the age of 39. Spark kept almost every piece of paper that passed through her hands during the course of her life, and her 2-mile-long archive is dangerous terrain for the invading army of biographers, filled with landmines in the form of laundry receipts. It is Wilson's contention that Spark's archive and her own autobiographical statements and writing were artfully and intentionally constructed to mislead while also hinting at the truth, and that, moreover, the novels, which in Wilson's reading form a complete and self-referential cycle, that's interesting, all find their subject in the uncanny experiences of the first 39 years of their author's pre-novelist life. You're fainting at something here. You don't want to say it, and I agree. Probably there's no point in saying it. Muriel Spark did not die at age 39. But there's a chasm being hinted at here, and that chasm was real. Absolutely real. I wonder if the sheet will mention it. Maybe not. From her early childhood in Edinburgh to her rise to celebrity in New York when the New Yorker ran the entirety of the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie in a single issue, Spark accumulated the material experiences that would both anticipate her writing and be anticipated by it. Whether it was serving as part of the psychological warfare effort against the Germans in the Second World War, being blackmailed by a mediocre inamorato, converting to Catholicism, believing that she was being sent coded messages by T.S. Eliot, and when finally publishing her novel about the Eliotic experience, discovering that her debut was almost identical to a novel published at the same time by Evelyn Waugh, Spark's experiences were doubled, foreshadowed, and the perfect material for her exemplary novelistic career. And scene. So the pub sheet does not mention the elephant in the room. You can't miss it, because what are we being told? Believing that she was being sent coded messages by T.S. Eliot. The elephant in the room, of course, is drink. But we don't have to stress it. If you're not going to stress it, I'm not going to stress it. I don't want the book to lie to me, but the pub sheet can do whatever it wants. So who is Frances Wilson? A critic, a journalist, and author of several works of nonfiction, including Literary Seductions, The Courtesan's Revenge, The Ballad of Dorothy Wordsworth, which won the Rosemary Crochet Prize, How to Survive the Titanic, Guilty Thing, A Guilty Thing I know. I think I might know the Dorothy Wordsworth book too, but Guilty Thing I read and liked, about Thomas de Quincey. She is a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, and she received a fellowship from the New York Public Library's Coleman Center in 2018. And she lives in London with her daughter. Okay, fantastic. So a new, and it sounds like a very interesting and not standard and not by the numbers biography of Muriel Spark. I'm drawing a blank here, though. Don't I remember that Martin Steinhart's book on Muriel Spark did, in fact, come out? And he's twice this size? Am I remembering that wrong? I'm remembering that cover did not... I'm remembering a cover for it. Maybe I'm remembering a different book. But I'm remembering that cover, and that cover did not have her sucking on tobacco for the one and only cover photo that you get. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But either way, a big new literary biography of an author I absolutely love. This will almost certainly spark me to read more Muriel Spark, to go back and reread. I don't know how many of her books I have, actually. I think I have every ebook. I don't know how many of the print and paper books I have. This will almost certainly prompt me to do that at the time, but it doesn't come out until September, so late September, so it's a long way away. But this is on the pile for tonight, without doubt. Without a doubt. So 2 books today. One far in the future, one far in the past. Fantastic. And a couple of periodicals. So not bad for a tiny little mail haul on a day that feels like autumn. Feels and looks like autumn. But I know that the inferno, the firestorm, is coming. So I'm not complaining at all. So I'll wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.